If you are considering purchasing the Regiments Winds of Change DLC, this video will detail the additional content the DLC adds to the game, along with how that new content complements the base game, to help you with your purchasing decision. If you enjoy strategy game content, please check out the rest of my channel, but that's enough of that. Let's get into the video. Today we're going to start with the new units and nations before looking at the new tactical aids, then finishing on the main event, the new Warpaths game mode, which is where we'll spend the majority of our time. So the easy headlines for this DLC are that there are more units and 4 new nations to play as. But that is a massive understatement because in the base game there are 7 nations you can play as: the US, Soviets, West Germany, the British, Belgium, East Germany, and Poland. And the Winds of Change DLC adds 4 new nations to that roster, being Czechoslovakia, the Netherlands, Canada, and France. Plus there are over 70 new units. That is a lot of new content added to the base game in what is a relatively cheap DLC, especially when you compare that to other games where you're lucky to get one whole faction per DLC. Although each nation is still broadly the same in terms of you have your main battle tanks, IFVs with infantry, etc., each new nation comes with its own historically accurate-ish units along with some decent voice acting. So on one hand, it is broadly more of the same, but on the other, I now get to play as the French with their AMX-30 main battle tank. Even if the nations don't drastically change the gameplay, this DLC does give you plenty of new toys to play with. Speaking of new units, there is a specific new unit type, Heliborne Infantry, which does mix up the gameplay due to the way they are deployed. Essentially, these infantry start off as helicopters that you can deploy and fly around, just like normal helicopters, which can be easily destroyed. But there is a button you can press to deploy the infantry, in a very similar process to deploying mechanized infantry from their IFVs. However, once the infantry are deployed, the helicopters fly away and don't come back, so your infantry are stuck on foot, although once you retreat them, they can then be redeployed with their helicopters once again. Once on foot, they're obviously slower than other infantry that can ride in their vehicles, but air assault infantry have a much higher stealth rating, can dig in faster, and can't be targeted by anti-tank weapons. The ability to rapidly deploy them makes them great for flanking attacks or taking an undefended point, or even well-defended points if you give them artillery support. Not all regiments have immediate access to these Heliborne troops, but most can access them via specific task forces, albeit you may need to upgrade that task force in order to obtain the air assault infantry. For reference, this is the symbol you're looking for. Given Regiments is otherwise a rather slow game, which is part of the game's appeal, the ability to deploy infantry this quickly is a genuine game changer without turning it into a crazy mouse-clicking Chad fest. Before we get into the juicy details of the new Warpaths mode, it's worth looking at the new tactical aids. There's the Combat Air Patrol, which essentially deploys air superiority fighters to patrol a section of the map who will engage other aircraft that happen to encroach on that area. Compared to other games, this obviously isn't a revolutionary mechanic, but considering your only anti-air option was previously ground-based, this does add something a bit new to the game. We then have Signal Intelligence, which will give you an idea of where the next enemy attack will come from, and with what strength. Now what's interesting here is that the level of Signal Intelligence degrades over time, so you need to keep investing in it to maintain the level of intelligence you receive, let alone receive more. So that's all well and good, but the main appeal of this DLC is the new Warpaths mode. It's true that many in the community wanted more curated campaigns that had some story to them, and on the face of it, a procedurally generated campaign obviously doesn't give us that, but I've got to say, it's good, and even those who are disappointed by the lack of story-driven campaign are still rather impressed by the new Warpaths mode. It's a pretty simple setup. You create a new campaign with full control over how long it is, who you play as, obviously. The setup otherwise feels very similar to the base game's campaign, but what happens is you get random maps throughout, with control points randomly spawned, and also random objectives that can range from simply take over control points, defend them, or something a little more interesting, such as intercepting a convoy. You work through the phases and stages in the usual way, carrying your regiment with you throughout the warpath, trying to upgrade and patch them up as you go, as you attempt to earn enough victory points by the end of the campaign. Basically, each of these randomized elements of the campaign result in a very different experience each time. It's basically infinite replayability with a whole bunch of nations, even if it does lack the story that comes with a curated campaign, which will be a disappointment to some. You'll see that the Winds of Change DLC has received positive feedback from the community, and it's worth delving into why that is in order to help you decide whether to make this purchase. The facts are that this is a relatively cheap DLC, and it essentially gives you more, much more, of what was in the base game. Therefore, those who enjoy the base game of Regiments are pleased with this DLC. It's not revolutionary, it doesn't try to change the formula, except for the airborne infantry, but everyone loves those. It just gives you more nations, more hardware for those that like to look at how pretty the main battle tanks are, and most importantly, near infinite replayability, which is the part the base game was really lacking. And it manages to do all of this for a rather inoffensive price. That is why this DLC has received good feedback. So if you are still unsure, consider this. If you enjoy multiplayer RTS, Regiments will never be for you, so that's a simple non-starter. If you do enjoy Regiments already, then you're almost guaranteed to enjoy the DLC, so it really just comes down to whether you're happy to stump up the cash for more of what you enjoy. If you haven't played Regiments at all, and you're just curious what the DLC offering is, if you were to decide to get it, rest assured this is a well-liked DLC for the game. So I recommend you try the free demo on Steam to see if you enjoy the base game of Regiments. I also have tips and tricks for beginners guides that I'll include in the description below, as the base game does have a bit of a learning curve at the beginning. But once you're over that, it's a rather good game for players who enjoy a good RTS, but are new to this particular type of battle tactics game. If you have any further questions or information you would like to add, please leave a comment below, which I can almost guarantee I will reply to. And if you found the video useful, leaving a like to reflect that would be much appreciated. See ya.